This is your World War III update. Here's what's going on. The price of gold hit another record high today in both real and nominal terms, broaching $4,000 Canadian and just creeping over the $2,800 USD in intraday trading. Now, why do I talk about the price of precious metals at all on this channel? Well, it's because it's a bellwether for disaster. When the price of gold is going up, in real terms, everything else is starting to suck. There's more crime, there's more war, there's more civil unrest. When the price of gold is declining, that means that things are getting better, okay? Case in point, before we get into the news, of which there is plenty of today, let's just take a look at history so I can prove my point here. From World War II down to about the bottom ass end of the dirty 1970s, things were going pretty damn good, weren't they? You know, business was booming. That's when Detroit was in a war zone and, you know, everybody was making money. Something happened here, gold standard, Nixon type stuff. And of course, the dirty, grimy, raunchy, nasty, hairy 70s, okay? Gold started to skyrocket in price, like from 1970 to I don't know, what was this, 73 or something? The price of gold just like went way the hell up. And society, that's when everybody thought that, you know, the world was ending, right? And then, I don't know, something happened here. Maybe there was some Middle Eastern intervention. The price of oil started to catch up to what people could afford again. And then, wouldn't you know it, the price of gold shot up again. Things got monumentally worse until early 1980, okay? This is probably when things were really bad with the Soviet Union, and they thought they were going to end the world with nuclear weapons, which is pretty much where we are right now. 1980-ish, I was born, and then, of course, God said, let there be light. Everything was fine, and the price of gold started declining. You know, globalization took root. Cheap products, first from Japan. Remember when things were made in Taiwan and Japan? Then they started to get made in China. Everybody was just living it up right down until the dot-com bubble. This was also the peak of the market. What a coincidence. What a coincidence, hey? That when the stock market was the most overvalued in history, the price of gold was at rock bottom. People were just living it up. They were enjoying life. They thought that nothing could ever go wrong. But lo and behold, what happened? Well, unfortunately, reality sunk in and things started to get a little bit worse up until about 2008 when things got, you know, they were teetering, right? And then all of a sudden, crash, right? So the crash happens because, of course, the recession hits. But this means that things are getting worse up until about 2012-ish when everybody thought the world was going to end. And then it's pretty much been trading sideways up until this point, approaching new record highs in real terms once again. And that's where we are today. We are in a situation where things are bad and they're only going to get worse, contrary to popular belief. Let me break it all down for you. See, that is why you got to check out SAFE, state-of-the-art air raid shelters, nuclear EM-proof. If you want to understand what SHTF opulence is going to look like, these are the guys that are, I thought this was something out of, I thought this was some sort of spoof from the movie The Purge, like that this is what the rich people actually use to, you know, get their houses ready for the purge. But if you're in the centimillionaire and above billionaire class, this is where you go to get your bunkers built, okay? These guys are building $20 million minimum, and then there's a VIP class ahead of that, which is invite only. Yes, you heard correct. The rich are preparing for the world to end, okay? You understand? They're going to have robot butlers. Now, why are they preparing for the world to end? Well, I'll fill you in on the details. Let's get some visuals in the background here, because I know y'all can't pay attention for more than a few seconds. If you're like me and that sludge content, there you go. Russia on fire, another oil refinery goes up in flames. But everything is just great, right? Yes, this is not all just theatrics that we're seeing with Trump and Putin and the handshake that's going to happen, and everybody's going to think everything's just fine when the complete opposite will be true, because France and Britain are getting ready to deploy a Peace Corps of 50,000 troops to Ukraine pending a Trump-brokered peace deal. They'll be deployed along the demarcation line, and they're not going to be directly affiliated with NATO. Of course, the Russians won't see it that way, and this is why the Russians won't go for this. The Russians are not going to capitulate to Trump's veiled threats in the ultimatum he issued recently, which said, if you don't get a peace deal moving, then we are going to have to put more sanctions on you. As if that's going to hurt Russia right now at this point in time. So Trump went back to the drawing board and he said, okay, OPEC, you have to drop your panties because we need the price of oil down so that we can bankrupt Russia. Okay, we need to try to stick it to them where it hurts, strategically defeat them economically so we don't have to in a nuclear sense. But a strategic defeat of Russia is a strategic defeat. If you were to get into a situation where Russian austerity was crippling its economy and the people were revolting, well, that, in Putin's mind, will be existential defeat. If his popularity starts slipping in the polls, he can't stand for that. So the Russians, we're still at an impasse. No matter how they try to paper this over for 4 years, the tensions are going to be at an all-time high, or stay at the high they're at. That's really the best we can hope for at this point in time. But there is a chance that because Trump is so capricious and unpredictable, that we could actually see nuclear war this year. And I'm being 100% serious about this. When Putin was joking about he liked Kamala Harris and he liked her laugh, remember when everybody was making fun of her laugh? He liked her because she's more predictable. They outright said it. They like a predictable president. With Trump, they don't know what to expect. You know, they don't know if Trump is going to take it personally. Again, they don't really know maybe what extent Trump has power, but Trump has, it's not even so much the power of the executive branch, it's that he's so popular that everybody kind of has to fall in line. So even if he needs Congress or the House to approve something, at least right now, he's the one calling the shots. So if they want to start sending Tomahawk missiles into Moscow, they could. Now, how long we have after that happens to get to the bunkers, I don't know. My guess is maybe a few hours at best. And I think that's being very optimistic. This situation could really spiral out of control, so people should not be resting on their laurels. And I'm not just saying that to fearmonger, I'm just being a realist. There really is no reasonable way out of this situation. The best we can hope for is a flag. The best we can hope for is trading sideways until the next 4 years and hoping that whoever gets in there next is not going to continue the same managed escalation that the Biden administration partook in. So really, it's one or the other has to collapse. There has to be a winner. Okay, and for reasons I'm not going to list off again, one side has to win. The Americans cannot abandon Europe. They're not going to abandon Ukraine. All this talk about how we've canceled Ukraine aid. It's not a retrenchment in funding for weapons. It's only for aid. Okay, so they're going to keep the weapons flowing. It's bad for the Ukrainian people and the European people, but not necessarily the Ukrainian military. Trump is going to increase defense spending, or at least he's going to try, and I think he'll be successful, to $1.35 trillion after calling on NATO members to spend 5% of their GDP on defense. If you are a Lockheed Martin primary shareholder, then you are in heaven right now, because you know you're going to make a whole lot of money in the not too distant future. 1.35 trillion. But I guess when you control for inflation, in real terms, it's probably just barely a record budget, considering that there was a time when they were spending 1 trillion when the money was worth a lot more than it was. Donald Trump is demanding that the Saudis drop their pants, and unfortunately, with OPEC, the Russians have a say in that. So the Russians aren't going to willingly drop the price of oil. And Trump has another problem, and it involves Canada. We supply the United States with 4 million barrels of oil per day. okay? And if Trump goes through with the tariffs, Canada has threatened to respond by repricing that oil so they don't get a discount, which would drive the price of oil up significantly. US 20 million or so barrels a day, 4 million coming from Canada. That's a significant portion. Good luck keeping prices suppressed and filling up your strategic oil reserve, okay? And having a flourishing global economy, it's just not going to happen. So this is why we've really got to pay attention in the next few days. I mean, it's long past 24 hours that the war was supposed to be stopped. I'm still waiting for the war to be stopped and for the big reveal to come out about the drones. Remember when Trump said he didn't want to go to New Jersey, and we basically surmised that it was likely a do with some nuclear threat that the drones were looking for? Well, he was supposed to tell us exactly what's going on. I understand he's a busy guy. He's doing a little tour of the disaster zones in the United States right now. But I guess we'll find out soon. Everybody's going to be sent on this wild goose chase for this JFK, MLK, probably heavily redacted nothing burger, which is ultimately what it's going to be. Unfortunately, everybody thinks this is going to be a big reveal and it's going to be the end of deep state, CIA, Mossad meddling with our politicians. But no, it's going to be the same old shit next year. It's just the way it is, and that's why we're preppers. We accept the grim reality of our existence, and that's that by and large we're on our own in a rich man's world. Okay, what the hell was I talking about? Trump is threatening Iran in a very covert sort of way. He is basically saying that it would be nice if the issues of Iran could be worked out without Israel striking military facilities. What type of military facilities? What constitutes a military facility? Is it going to be like the Israeli-Palestine situation, like a little child is considered a terrorist because they might be a terrorist someday? Is it going to be like Tehran is a city that could be used for military purposes, so we had to drop a nuke on it? Who knows? It's quite possible. There's going to be deporting anybody who supports Palestine, or in their words, is a supporter of Hamas. Because if you say free Palestine, I guess that means that you support terrorists, right? You can't, there's no two ways about it. There's no nuance in that argument. It's not a spectrum of opinions. It's just one or the other. So you get deported. So the free speech thing has its limits if you're not yet a citizen. Right? We have the Iranians doing a military exercise on the Strait of Hormuz, getting ready. And I got all the receipts to show this. We'll show it in a minute. I'm just doing the quick breakdown here. Russia claims that they conscripted 500,000 soldiers last year. 500,000. And that wasn't forced conscription, so they claim. I don't know how many of those guys were prisoners. I don't know how many of them were strong-armed into joining, but they claim that they added another 500,000 troops. I don't know how many they lost. But nonetheless, when the U.S. is struggling to add 40,000 troops per year, I think that's a bad sign, despite the fact that the U.S. nearly has 3 times, is it 3 times the population? No, I guess it'd be 2 times the population. Not good. Europe is going to, they may well be the intermediary in this conflict with Ukraine, in that the United States will not provide Ukraine aid directly. This is how they'll fool the public. Maybe they'll give that to some country in Europe, and then Europe, of course, will parlay that on to Ukraine. I think that's what's going to happen. According to the Secretary General Mark Rutte, he said that Europe is ready to finance and purchase American weapons for Ukraine. And as I indicated, Ukraine is still exempt from the ban on the delivery of aid into foreign countries by the United States. Not the aid portion, but the militaristic portion they are exempt from. Trump is saying that they're going to be pulling out 20,000 troops from Europe. Is that a goodwill gesture? Is that to try to force the Europeans' hand? Is that to scare them? Because, you know, they're not clearly prepared to defend against the Russians if the Russians did intend to continue to go further beyond the borders of Ukraine. Mind you, that won't be for some time because they can barely make it over the Dnieper River. We have Kellogg, the envoy to Ukraine, saying that I think the war is going to come to an end. Just Ukraine alone lost more soldiers in 3 years than we lost in an entire Vietnam War or Korean War combined. Well, the United States is not really a great metric to measure the loss of manpower in terms of the tolerance level of countries. Because, of course, you're talking about the Ukrainians, Europeans, Russians, they're used to losing millions of people. Russia is getting billions of dollars from oil sales, he says. What if you drop that to $45? Well, you would bankrupt them, right? And they would have to come to the bargaining table. Russia is having its oil refineries lit up day in and day out. Is that bringing them to the bargaining table? Absolutely not. I don't think this strategy is going to work. In fact, what it's going to do is it could potentially negatively impact American and Canadian businesses because, of course, our break-even margins for our shitty shale and tar sand oil that we have here are much slimmer than what they are in the United States. I believe it's around $65 a barrel is when it starts to cease being very viable for Canada. In the United States, it's lower because they still have some lower hanging fruit, but not much. The older wells, it used to be $28. The newer ones, it's approaching $50. In Russia, they can do it cheaper. In the Middle East, way cheaper than that. So really, you're going to have to shoot yourself in the foot to slow the other guy down. What did they say? Cut off your nose to spite your face, something to that effect. That's what's going to have to happen, and that could actually damage the American ambition to try to become more self-reliant. So it's a tangled web we weave. You cannot go to war with your enemies and your allies at the same time, okay? You cannot alienate both at the same time. If you go after Canada, then you're going to raise the price of oil, right? If you go after Europe, then you're going to be giving China and Russia an inroad. So we have to balance these things. That's why I would say just kind of watch things as they unfold in the next couple weeks. We're going to find out what was bluster and bullshit and what is actually the intention. And I think we're going to start getting some answers real soon. But right now they're doing all these executive orders, which are, many of them are superficial cultural issues. Can you use this bathroom or that bathroom? And yeah, there's one thing right now that's leading to some conflict down at the Mexican border. Potentially that could actually really heat up. But a lot of these things, it's like Guinness Book of World Records. You know, I mean, you can break a Guinness Book of World Records, but for what? You know, I mean, it's a quantity. They're looking at quantity, but it's really the quality of these executive orders. And I'm not throwing shade on Trump here. I criticize Biden all the same. If you're too sensitive to take criticism and not realize by now that I'm genuinely, truly apolitical, just going for the truth, you'll never hear me say vote Democrat or vote Republican on this channel, but I'll criticize everybody until the day I die because that's just how I'm built. And all I can tell you is I think a lot of these things are just distractions. Like the JFK, MLK thing, that'll keep people busy for a while. And they'll get them forgetting about other things that are going on, other promises that were supposed to be kept that are not. Trump said again with respect to the drones, now he says that he doesn't know what it is. Or he says he kind of knows, but he doesn't. Now he's saying that he doesn't. And he was asking one of his aides, you know, do we know what's going on with that? And so it makes me wonder, have they just not provided him all the details yet? And when he is apprised of those details, is he going to say, oh, that's why we didn't tell people? Because we didn't want to freak them out that there was potentially nuclear bombs afoot. Because that's what could go down. Trump basically issued an ultimatum to Russia. Moscow told him to go and screw it in a nice way, right? You see, Russia and Trump and Putin communicate in a different way. When you see them engaging in this conciliatory language, understand that it's all for show. And just never forget when they're talking about, oh yeah, we're going to meet and we're going to discuss nuclear disarmament. Before this Ukraine war even started, Trump was getting ready to put intermediate range nuclear forces into Germany. And now that's a done deal for 2026. But I'm sure that timeline could be accelerated. What a coincidence, hey? That now they're going to be putting these tomahawks in Germany and Trump just magically got elected this year, right? Interesting, isn't it? This is Trump's message to Putin. You'll notice that certain things are in caps. It's only going to get worse, he says. I'm sure Putin knows that. Of course, he made a mistake here on 60 million. It was more like 30 million. What else does he say? He threatens to impose sanctions and tariffs and taxes and blah, 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 which Russia probably doesn't give a shit about at this point. But I think the language here at the bottom, it's time to make a deal. No more lives should be lost. We can do it the easy way or the hard way, okay? So I think, again, we've never really seen Trump in a fight because he's so intimidating to people, right? People don't want to take a chance. But what if Putin pushes back? Then we're going to see sparks fly, I think. And I think that's what a lot of people are underestimating, the potential for that to happen and the potential for everything from that point forward to go wrong. We got China building out one of the biggest solar projects in history. It is going to generate 100 gigawatts, and it's going to be spanning 250 miles, 5 kilometers wide. They're calling it the Great Solar Wall. That's going to give them energy independence. They're not going to care about a war with Iran, or they're not going to need oil at that point in time. Trump is proposing interest rates being reduced, which is likely one of the contributing factors to the price of oil. There was a crypto executive order. Many Bitcoin bros are upset, crying foul, saying that this favors alternative cryptocurrencies like shitcoins, like Melania Coin or Trump Coin and Ripple in particular, and possibly the other, what do they call those coins, like Tether and the ones that are pegged to the currencies. Too many words to remember. Anyways, it's not what the Bit Bros had thought, which is why you haven't seen the price of Bitcoin move all that much. Still holding above 100,000 though, which is surprising for $100,000 worth of nothing. BlackRock though is pumping Bitcoin. BlackRock's like, don't worry, we got you, bro. You know, BlackRock, all these guys were saying BlackRock's the cabal, you know, they're the new Bilderberg, right? Well, BlackRock CEO reveals sovereign wealth fund Bitcoin talks predicts 14 trillion for Bitcoin as the dollar collapse fears boost price. So they're basically saying, hey, we the man are going to stick it to ourselves. Don't worry. We're gonna basically dismantle the deep state. We're going to dismantle our state together with all the poor people. Yeah, all the poor people who want decentralized currency, freedom from our financial hegemons. They're going to help us, the richest people in the world. Just like the richest people in the world are going to cure cancer with their $500 billion Manhattan AI Skynet project thingamajigger. Yeah, just like the people who are spending money on this stuff right here. I mean, you know, if there's a business offering this, that means there has to be a market for it. I was considering trying to get an interview or something, but I'm not even on this level. They don't care about guys like me. They don't need our audience to be promoting this stuff because this is the type of service that people go to. It's not the one that needs to be marketed. And they're building all kinds of, you know, high-end security. So it's not just bunkers, but it's like secure, you know, just houses, engineering, design, you know, they got all this stuff here, yachts, bomb-proof yachts, you know, look out for pirates. I don't know if they're pirate-proof, secret and discreet panic rooms, state-of-the-art air raid shelters, nuclear and EMP-proof. So this is what they're building, guys. I'll give you the details of that in just a moment. We'll quickly go into a bit more depth about the stories of the day. Okay, so where do we begin? Have I talked about everything? That'd be great because I want to get home and hang out with family. What time we got here? Okay. Yeah, so Trump is urging OPEC to lower oil prices. in order for the conflict to end. And again, this is a complicated issue because if you can't have your cake and eat it too when you are the global hegemon. You have to make some sort of concessions. And unfortunately, everybody thinks, like what Trump's inherited, despite what you think of Biden, at least in stock market terms, things are better than they've ever been for the stock market bros, right? Now, not everybody is invested in the stock market. The cost of living is very high. The credit card interest rates are high. The debt load on people is the highest it's ever been. But interest rates aren't nearly as high as they were in times like the 80s and things of that nature. So, you know, it's still a relatively good period of time. And with so much going on in the world, the Fed has managed to somehow walk this tightrope and keep everything propped up. But that all crashes on Trump's watch, not even because anything Trump and his government is going to do, just because it's a mathematical certainty. It has to happen. And every day that we hit new highs in the S&P 500, it's like walking on ice and hearing cracks and creaks. And you're walking across thin ice, across that lake. You're trying to make it to the end, and you just keep hearing these cracks. The further we go in, the worse it's going to be. The best thing that can happen is this thing crashes as soon as possible, early in his term, and then he can come out on top in the latter half of the term. Yeah, these attacks on Russia just continue to accelerate. Let's see what Trump says here. This is another point of contention with the Russians and the U.S. administration.
Obama's administration, they stole the design for Russia stole the design. They got it from us. Some bad person gave them design. It was our job. Now, I authorized the building of hypersonic, and we're doing super hypersonic, actually, which is even a step better. But and we'll have them starting fairly shortly. But Russia got them, and they built them, whereas they stole them during the Obama administration. Obama, not Biden, not anyone else. They probably stole plenty from Biden. We'll hear about that, too. But they stole the hypersonic stuff, and they made hypersonic missiles.
Now, the Russians are saying this is bullshit, but he might be onto something. I mean, there may have been some secrets stolen, and there may have been a reason why the United States didn't go through with the creation of them at the time that they did, but the Russians, understanding the gravity of the situation, seeing the West breathe down their necks, realized that, no, we have to fast-track the development of hypersonic weapons, and maybe because Russia is currently in a war. Remember when they first started using the Kinzhal and the, what is the other one? The Kinzhal is air to surface. I believe they have some surface to surface as well. But when they started using these, everybody thought that, you know, they were going to be a massive game changer. And to an extent or another, they were, but Patriot systems are still there and operational in Ukraine to this day, meaning that they're not as impressive as, you know, they're making them out to be. So there's a good possibility that they're still in a active operational development phase of this, where they're getting real world experience using them, and that's helping inform and enhance the design, but they're not quite where they should optimally be at, or to the standard of the U.S. military. Remember, the U.S. military is largely an expeditionary force. They're not really set up to fight a peer in terms of, you know, unconventional methods. The nuclear program is quite dated, although some believe that if it got down to that the United States has the bomber capability and they can do it via air to actually neutralize a significant portion of Russian threats before they can get their missiles out of the ground. They actually believe that they can defeat Russia using only conventional means, not even having to go to the nuclear level. And this is partially why the motivation to expand the Greenland presence. The United States already has military bases in Greenland, but it wants to enhance those military bases because, of course, that's part of the strategy of Russian encirclement. And of course, it's done surreptitiously under the guise of we want to get the resources and stuff. But getting the resources in Greenland is such a massive, colossal industrial endeavor that would require a industrial base and supply chain which was functioning efficiently and globally without any sort of hiccups along the way in order to be conducted in a reasonable period of time to build out the infrastructure that you would need to extract the resources of Greenland. I'm going to presume, unless you take Elon Musk off X for a few weeks, it's not going to get done for probably years. So definitely not within Trump's term. So yeah, actually, speaking of Trump's term, there were rumors floating around yesterday, and this could be just rumors, and whether or not they're going to be able to do it or not, but making an amendment. I believe there was a congressperson who wanted to make an amendment to the rule that says you could only be in office for 2 terms, so that Trump could potentially do a 3rd term. I don't think Melania is going to like that, because I think she wants to just, chill. I get that vibe from her. She just wants to chill. Russia says it will not allow NATO dominance in the Baltic Sea. Of course, NATO is threatening to commandeer and basically inspect Russian ships that are moving through the Baltic, potentially putting in jeopardy their shadow fleet. And this, of course, could potentially be a flashpoint for hostilities in an already very hostile environment where there's all kinds of military activity. And there's, of course, been numerous talks to try to block St. Petersburg in and basically cut them out of the Gulf of Finland, which is how they have access to the Baltic Sea, and make it a NATO lake for reals. State Department issues immediate widespread pause on foreign aid. The stop work orders appear to apply to U.S. aid for all countries except Israel and Egypt. Well, it's kind of true and it's kind of not. Of course, they understand that strategically they can't abandon Ukraine, but they know this is kind of an easy semantic win for them with the public. The reality is the funds that have been earmarked for Ukraine, which they're not even close to being distributed yet, those are exempt from this. So this is pertaining to various types of aid. And I have a feeling that they'll say this up front, and on the back end, they'll continue to supply Ukraine with aid. And they're using this as part and parcel of this bargaining tool in an attempt to get Russia to make some concessions. But the Russians can't make concessions. How this is going to end is this. It's going to end along the Dnieper River. Russia is not going to get Kherson back, because would they even want it back? Because it's on that side of the river. I don't have my map up today, so if you know, you know. Anything to the east of the Dnieper and maybe some buffer zone around Kiev, including Kharkov, will be Russian. And that's just how it's going to be. And there's going to be NATO troops in what remains of Ukraine. And that's the best they're going to get in terms of denazification and all this stuff. Eventually the Russians are going to have to make some concessions on that as well. Because do they even want Western Ukraine? So realistically, that's where the line is going to get drawn. That's where the new Berlin Wall 2.0 is going to be left. As confirmed by Politico, Trump aid freeze leaves weapons flowing to Ukraine. Other aid flows were secured before Trump became president, but reconstruction may be affected. Reconstruction. So they keep talking about reconstruction. The Iranians are preparing in the Strait of Hormuz. They've been doing a lot of military exercises as of recent, and it's quiet. Trump isn't saying much about it. But remember, there was a deal with Iran, brokered with the Russians, with numerous European countries, with the JCPOA, that would have had Iran monitored in their nuclear activity. Maybe not 100%, but it's as good as you were going to get, okay? So Trump backed out of that deal, and Trump has basically explicitly stated on numerous occasions he doesn't think that Iran should have nuclear energy at all. And he claims it's because they have a lot of oil, and why not just make petroleum-based power plants everywhere? You have limitless amounts of oil, why not just do that? And I mean, you know, he does have a point. At the same time, I view it almost as a Second Amendment of the planet. I think, you know, it's a country's right as to whether or not they want to get nukes. Now, if you want to interdict that development and go in there and disarm them, then that's on you. But it's just like, you know, it's like we have a right to bear arms. Well, we don't here. Maybe if we become the 51st state. I love those jokes about becoming the 51st state, by the way. I don't take it personally at this point, you know, whatever. I mean, I'm willing to roll the dice on anything, to be brutally honest. But, you know, it's one of those things where, I mean, it's a country's sovereign right to do what you want. For us to say that, you know, they're just going to start nuking everybody right away. This is a Thucydides trap thing. The Israelis are concerned that if Iran gets nuclear weapons, they'll have more bargaining power within the region, and that the Israelis won't have escalation dominance, which is what they do right now with the nukes that they have not disclosed. So it really is a rules for thee and not for me situation where one side doesn't have to abide by any international rules and this atomic energy agency bullshit that they keep shoving down the Iranians' neck. Israel doesn't have to comply with any of that for some reason. We can just trust them, even though they committed genocide before everybody's eyes, and nobody says anything about it. But Iran, for some reason, is not allowed to do that, even though I don't agree with the principles of the theocratic regime and many of their policies. Hey, man, it's like, you know, maybe the balance of power would be better if there was an opposite end with nuclear weapons in that region. I mean, look what's happened with Russia and the United States for so long. We found a way to make it work. Now, up until, of course, we hit this new wall, but at least it's a way to kick the can down the road. Now, if you go to war conventionally with the Iranians, the threat, of course, is that they're going to block the Strait of Hormuz, and it might not be able to be physically enforced 100%, but no ships are going to be able to pass through here because of insurance purposes and, of course, the threat that they're going to be blown up. Plus, then they activate the Houthis. They empower them with even more weapons to start targeting the Saudis. Oil plants like Aramco, which they did back in 2021, which, of course, will cause the price of oil to go through the frickin' roof. Okay, so Iran still has options, and fighting a conventional war with Iran, they're not ready yet. They haven't had enough time to put Pete Hegseth in the BDUs and do another all-you-can-be 2.0 campaign to try to remasculate the masses and get people signing up for the military again. But who wants to sign up for the military when you can just play Call of Duty all day? So there has to be something. Something has to hit home to really, like Elon Musk is like, trying to tell everybody to have kids. Okay, that's great. You can tell them to do it. But if a person doesn't see the value in having children and they don't come to that of their own free will, chances are they just like being distracted and they just like living their life for themselves. And it's probably not going to happen. It's something that's so deeply ingrained in culture right now to go out and live your best life, right, at the expense of being old and lonely when you grow up and not having children, that people are willing to do that because they genuinely think that that is what's going to bring them happiness. So there needs to be a culture shift, like a fundamental culture shift. I'm not talking about, you know, just saying it. Doing and saying are different things. We can say that we're going to, you know, bring back the spirit of G.I. Joe and all that. And really, I think these things that they're doing to try to encourage that are actually discouraging it, like the Call of Duty and all that. Really, I think at this point in time, the only hope for the U.S. is this $500 billion artificial intelligence project that will accelerate robotics, automation, and then they'll get their robotic foot soldiers, and then they won't even need, you know, they will need a much smaller amount of soldiers to do the work. It'll just be, one or two, a few officers for every hundreds of autonomous drones and robots, right? Because now they're bringing out these things called agents, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Operators and agents. What great language for the first leg of artificial general intelligence, eh? Oh boy, it's going to get interesting. It's going to get interesting. Iran was testing out their new kamikaze naval drones today. So this is a demonstration here on a moderately sized warship. I don't know about that. Was there a little bit of pyrotechnics going on here? Because it detonated before it hit. Did they blow that up first? What? I kind of noticed before, but now that I watch it, maybe it was blown up. It just blew up before it actually hit. Maybe there's a reason why it would do that. I don't know. But it blew the shit out of that thing. I would not want to be on that boat. Clearly sending a message. And of course, they have a naval port which has all of the things protected with 500 meters, a half a kilometer of rock. Let's hear what they have to say about bird flu. We have an expert coming on, a professor of, not virology, it is epidemiology. He's going to be on the channel this weekend, and he's going to have something to say about this. And he's a prepper, okay? He's a cool guy, so don't come down in the section of the comments and just start, roasting him right away, thinking that he's bringing the Fauci ouchie. That's not the perspective he's bringing. He's bringing a level-headed, even-keel perspective. Let's hear what Fox News has to say about the CDC. Let me turn this volume up here.
Patient in Louisiana is suffering the nation's first severe infection. The agency maintains that the risk of a widespread outbreak remains low. Let's go to Christina Coleman now with the very latest on this. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Griff. The CDC says a genetic analysis indicated that a mutation of the virus was discovered inside a Louisiana patient. This person contracted the first severe case of H5N1 in the nation. The patient is one of the 66 confirmed bird flu cases in humans in 10 states across the U.S., including California, Michigan, and Texas. There was no evidence that the Louisiana patient passed the illness to anyone else. Health experts say the genetic analysis from the Louisiana patient indicates the virus evolved in a way that can make it more transmissible to humans because it more easily binds to the cell receptors in the upper respiratory tract.
So what that means, based on what this expert told me, is that it's mutated, okay, now to be more receptive to humans, but it's not transmissible from human to human. But that final step of it being more infectious to humans, at least this particular strain, has hit. And this, of course, doesn't pertain to biowarfare, somebody who might want to weaponize this. If you wanted to get everybody locked down again, and you want to do it in a way where they would do it voluntarily, because we know that they ain't going to be able to oppose a lockdown again after what they did. But if people are literally dying in the streets, people are going to do that shit themselves. And this is something I said back when the pandemic started. I said, if the pandemic was bad enough, okay, you wouldn't have to tell people to do anything. The fact that you have to mandate stuff and you got cops chasing people and beating them on beaches, that's how you knew it was a bunch of nothing, right? But there's still, of course, it's not nothing in the sense that I had COVID twice and it was something I'll remember for the rest of my life. It was a bad illness. I can imagine being 80 years old and having that. But clearly, they need more targeted approaches in terms of mitigating that type of situation. So hopefully common sense prevails, but my guess is that it won't. And whether it emerges naturally, of course, now that there's a far larger genetic pool for this virus to potentially have inroads into the human genome, now that it's either that or it's going to potentially be some bad actor. And now that you have artificial intelligence, which could assist in that process, this is why they keep saying we need guardrails. And Sam Altman today talking about social contracts. Well, I'm going to tell you what it means, okay, in just a moment. Now, how much time do I got left? Oh, shit, talking too damn much. Talking too damn much, man. I got to bring back that all-American prepper. People miss that guy. All right, so this is Mexico, Mexican border. The troops are in the Mexican border. I mean, I agree with this, man. I mean, these cartels, they shouldn't be able to do the shit they're doing. This is what the military should be used for. They got these, this is Ospreys, is that what they're called? Those things are cool, man. Going to be obsolete soon, but still pretty cool. Anyways, the Mexican government is saying, smoke you. We ain't going to accept those deportation flights. So I suspect that we're going to see some sparks fly here. Mexico refuses to accept U.S. deportation flight. The Mexican government has criticized Donald Trump unilateral immigration actions. I'm surprised that we're not seeing more violence in the streets yet. I think it's only going to take a few incidents, though. There's going to be some cover story, you know? Kid gets shot in raid on home or something like that, and then that could potentially see things start to unfold domestically with this issue. I mean, they're about a few hundred into what is a multi-million strong problem. So, yeah. Apparently, Donald Trump had a fiery call with Denmark's prime minister over Greenland. And what was the exact quote? So this is what they said. Many European officials had hoped his comments about seeking control of Greenland for national security reasons were a negotiating ploy to gain more influence. But the call with Frederiksen has crushed such hopes, deepening the foreign policy crisis between the NATO allies. The intent was very clear. They want it. The Danes are now in crisis mode, one person briefed on the call. Another said the Danes are utterly freaked out by this. Of course, they are a NATO country, so this would be an intra-NATO conflict. How does Article 5 pertain to that? Not a clue. Not a clue whatsoever. $48 billion to build a great solar wall. China wants to power the entire planet. I highly doubt that. How would they get the power? You need a lot of power cables, but they would power themselves. That's what China really needs to focus on right now because, of course, they're running out of oil. Or at least they're potentially, that's their only Achilles heel for the Chinese is energy. Let's hear what Mr. Sam Altman has to say today. I think they got a lot of dirt on this guy, to be brutally honest. The way Elon is trolling him, they got a lot of dirt on Sam Altman. Let's hear what he has to say about these new artificial agents, general intelligence agents. Basically, how can I explain it? It's like it's a personal assistant. It takes over your computer and it does stuff for you. So you basically just tell it, hey, I want to, give it a picture of food to order for you online. And it's going to do that. But that's just the beginning. You tell it, hey, write me a code for an app. That's where this gets weird. Okay. But, maybe I'm going to have to get an expert on that particular topic on the channel to explain it in layman speak, because I'm definitely not the guy to do that. But here's what Altman has to say about how this technology is going to change the world.
I still expect, although I don't know what, and this is over a long period of time. This is not a next.
By the way, Sam Altman, big time prepper, has a bug out retreat in Big Sur.
Year or, the year after, that kind of thing. But over a long period of time, I still expect that there will be some change required to the social contract, given how powerful we expect this technology to be. I'm not a believer that there won't be any jobs. I think we always find new things to do. But I do think the whole structure of society itself will, be up for some degree of debate and reconfiguration.
Remember what Larry Ellison said. He is the CEO of Oracle, I think the second highest net worth individual on the planet. He said that everybody's going to have a camera, they're going to be live streaming 24/7, and everybody's going to be on their best behavior. What Altman is talking about is the fact that the real world and the world of artificiality or virtuality, the reality and virtuality are going to become so blurred that you're not going to be able to distinguish what is what, unless, I think, this is what he's saying, in terms of social contract, that means that you're not going to be able to access the internet, at least not the dark web. The dark web will take on a whole new meaning with this, a real cyberpunk sort of meaning. But you're not going to be able to access or utilize any of these tools, these AI tools, unless you make some sort of concession, which will be in the form of some sort of ID. You'll no longer be able to be anonymous, or if you are, you won't really be anonymous, if you know what I mean, because the deepfakes are just going to get way too accurate. It's going to be, and on the basis of very little input data, deepfakes and just misinformation is going to be rampant. So they're going to have to find a way to, and I understand this to a degree, but really what they're talking about is maintaining their own privilege. If you're a king, you don't build a god that is going to bring unlimited abundance to everybody, because then you lose your privilege. Go watch my last update I did where I go into depth about that. So this guy is saying that
the Chinese labs, they have more H100s than
talk about NVIDIA's most advanced chips. Okay, these Chinese labs have somehow gotten a hold of NVIDIA's best chips, despite sanctions against them buying them from the TSMC company. So what this means is that China is finding ways to circumvent and continue to beat the Silicon Valley at their own game. They're building faster AIs, which are better for cheaper somehow.
people think.
And these are the highest powered NVIDIA chips that they were not supposed to have.
Yes. My understanding is that DeepSeek has about 50,000 H100s, which they can't talk about, obviously, because it is against the export controls that the United States has put in place. And I think it is true that, I think they have more chips than other people expect, but also on a go-forward basis, they are going to be limited by the chip controls and the export controls that we have in place.
Yeah, so we don't know what level of, down to what nanometer of chip the Chinese are able to make just yet. But we do know that DeepSeek is not too far in terms of artificial analysis quality index. They're at an 89 compared to OpenAI 1, which is 90. So we don't know what O3 is. Gemini is not too far behind. Where's Grok? Is Grok even on here? Grok ain't even on here. Uh-oh. Elon's got to pick up the pace here. Spending too much time on Twitter. Like me. Yeah, gold intraday high. Remember that. Remember when I did all those gold videos and I warned you years ago what's going down? I got 5% left. Okay, I'm going to quickly talk about, I'm going to do a dedicated video on this because I want to see if I can get somebody from this company to come and talk about what they do. Because this is like something out of a science fiction. This is like something on the movie The Purge. Lavish doomsday bunkers. Luxury doomsday bunker for the ultra-rich unveiled by SAFE. I can't remember what that's an acronym for. SAFE. Is it this state of... No, I can't remember. Anyways. $300 million doomsday complex named Project Airy. I wonder if there's some interesting etymology to the word airy. Will be launched, that's A-E-R-I-E, will be launched in 2026 by, okay, here we go, Strategic Armored and Fortified Environments, SAFE. That's a great name. Designed to house 625 ultra-rich clients per facility with individual units costing up to $20 million each. This is exactly like you see in the movies. Go watch the movie 2012 with the Ark. That's what this is, okay? Initial location, Virginia, near Washington, D.C., with plans for 50 U.S. cities and 1,000 global affiliate locations. What are they planning to really do here, guys? Are they going to, everybody, okay, all the net worth, 100 million and above, get their bunkers, and then they're just going to drop the doomsday virus? They're going to all retreat and come up when the smoke clears and get the robot butlers to serve them for eternity? While they have artificial intelligence cure all the cancers and stuff? Is that what they're talking about? Oh, man. Luxury amenities, AI-powered medical care, okay? Wellness programs, gourmet dining. Oh, my God. Imagine people are like eating each other on the surface, and gourmet dining, the opulence of that. An indoor swimming pool, a climbing wall, even a Formula One track in some design. Why do you need, what inefficient use of space for entertainment, you know? Just get like really advanced VR and holodecks and stuff. Advanced security, SEIF compliant, sensitive compartment, information facility environments, EMP proof. Well, obviously, if it's that far underground, nuclear fallout resistant, I'd hope so. Cutting edge, robotic medical care, emergency response, and defense against extreme threats. I mean, look, these guys with billions of dollars, what are you going to spend it on? You know, it's not even a question of, you know, should you get a bunker? It's like, what else am I going to do with all this money? I got a yacht. I got 50 mansions. You know, why not just get a doomsday bunker just in case? I would if I had billions of dollars. You know I would. And I think because of all this shit going on, go watch the movie Contact again. There's that crazy religious fanatic guy. Nothing against religious people. 95% of religious people are awesome. I love you all to death. But there's that fringe amount. And Dr. Hugo de Garis calls them the Terrans, okay? They're not going to like this Sam Altman, we're going to create gods, virtual gods, AI, artificial superintelligence stuff. They're going to start sabotaging these facilities. And mark this prediction down. I think it's going to happen in the next couple of years. You're going to start to see the sabotage of data centers. I got 1% left, but I got it out. That's all I had to say. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, go to Canadian Paradise.